In this video, we're going to be going over how, well, we're going to be making some improvements to our inventory and how it gets updated / refreshed. So if you recall now from the previous video, which this is going to be an extension of, let's say I have a med kit, and I'll just grab a can of food. So, see the items? I drop the health kit. You can see it takes a bit and it does that little, like it has a little delay for refreshing. While this works, it's not very neat or nice to look at, and the potential issue that I see is, I'll show you I can't really show you, but let's say I press drop, and then there's a delay from the server that is longer than 3 milliseconds. Then if that was the case, then this would not be updated and it would still show that I have a water bottle there. So it would still show that I have the item in my inventory, even though just because the server hasn't replicated the inventory array to the client again. So it just wouldn't be working properly. It would show we still had the item. So we're gonna fix that and do some other small little improvements. So what the idea here is going to be, we're going to be having another variable set, and it's going to be an array of our own inventory. It's just going to be a copy. So when we open up the inventory, we're going to set that array to what we currently have, our replicated array variable, or items array here. And that's what we're going to be modifying. So that array is going to be known just on our client. And as we, for instance, remove or use an item, we are calling the, what's it called? We're going to be calling either the drop or the use function on the item as normal. And since those are going to be running on the server is going to be updating and doing its thing. But we're only updating our client, like our replicated client array, if that makes sense. So, alrighty, so let's go ahead and get started on that. We can actually start in the populate inventory function. This runs on constructor. Let's see, do I want to do that there? No, let's do this separate. So in the constructor, I'm going to create separate functions for this as well. We're going to go ahead and get our inventory component. Then we're going to get our inventory items, and we are going to set that as an array. So we're going to call this inventory, whatever, we'll just call it inventory items, or C inventory items. So client inventory items, going to be of the type pickups and object references. Then if you click this little dot here, you can select the grid, which will make that an array. So we're going to set that once our interface gets created. So we can actually, I'm trying to think, we can probably, for our populate inventory function, let's change it up a bit. So our inventory items, let's see here, we're going to go ahead and delete all these, and instead we're going to pass in an array of items to our populate inventory function. So that way we can pass in either our current inventory, like our C++ array of items, or our inventory items variable that we just created and set. So that should make it a lot easier for when we go to refresh it and stuff like that. So let's make a input. The type is going to be pickups, object reference, and again, make it an array. And let's call this inventory array. So we can just pass that in to our for each loop. Go back to our event graph, and let's simply call it. And since we're setting this, we can go ahead and just pass it all in. Alright, what's the issue? Oh, duh. Uh, let's actually go ahead and rewrite this a little bit as well. Yeah. Alright, so let's go ahead and delete that. And let's get rid of our for each loop as well. And we're just going to replace that with a normal for loop. Now let's see here. Our inventory array. Can use get a copy. So for the index, it's going to be 15. So 0 to 15, that's 16 total items. So remember, our grid is a 4 by 4. So we're going to loop through each item. So we'll put this here. Alright, so we're going to loop through each item in our inventory. We can do an is valid check. And if it's valid, then we will create a new valid item. And if it is not, we can do, actually let's not do that. Alright, so those will be null, so it's not getting a valid item, so we can actually probably modify this a little bit. No, let's just create an invalid. Rewrite our create empty slots function. Without passing anything in. And we can make it get rid of our current item count, as we do not need that anymore. And on false, we simply create our empty slots. Alright, let's see if that works. Alright, we have a 4 by 4. Grab medkit, and we have our health. Drop it, and it wipes it. Alright, so it's set up how we want. Yeah, so now we can simply, whenever we need to, we just, after we, our refresh function is going to simply call this instead of being cleared and then called again by a timer, if that makes sense. Alright, so remove, let's go ahead and close those and go back to our event graph. So this is being initially created, and when let's just move this down. So when we click drop, this is where we need to set up our refresh. So we go through everything. Oh, I want to make sure this is actually valid first as well. Just to be on the safe side. Okay, so when we click our button, let's see here. So we filled that out. We drop the item, and there's the reference to the item. Okay, so let's delete our setting and refresh function call. After we drop the item, I want to, we still have a reference to it, so we can look through. Oops. Get, we're going to do a for each with a break. Then check this, so array element, check if that is equal to a certain object, which is going to be our item reference. Let's check it. Alright, so if we did find, so if the item does in fact equal the item we have selected, then we will break out of the loop, Is that the way to go about it? Alright, so let's see. Looping through, we find a matching item. Alright, so after this, we are going to actually want to remove it from our copy of the inventory array. So remove at index. And that's going to be array index. Can I connect these? Cool. So we're going to remove it from that array. And we break out, and then off completed, we are going to call our refresh inventory. Alrighty. So let's see what our refresh inventory function does. So we need to modify this. So let's go ahead and delete our timer, which is the thing that we are rewriting this to avoid. And we will call our populate inventory function again. And the inventory array we pass in is our client modified array. So let's see if this works or if I completely broke it. So our medkit shows, click, drop. As you can see, it's immediately gone, and it is getting dropped on the server as well. So let's grab all these, drop the water, drop the can of beans, and drop the health. Alright, that seems to be working. We do need to do something for one bug real quick that we just created. So we click the health, we drop it, then if I press drop again, it's still holding a reference to the item, this health item, but it is not in our inventory. And if you recall from our last video, we made it so if that is the case, then it disconnects us from the server or disconnects the caller. So if I click drop, as you can see, we get disconnected. So that is very easy to fix. After we refresh our inventory, we simply set our item reference. Not what I wanted it to do. We just set it to nothing. So let's see if that's the case now. Grab our medkit, click it, drop, and drop again. Nothing is happening, so we are good to go. Now we just need to properly set up this thing of spaghetti right here. I'll move this up a little bit again. Alright, let's see, how can we organize this so where it's not, yeah. Let's actually create a function, call this one used or dropped item. I think that has two P's in it. Have it taken an input of the type pickups. Let's just call it item. Let's close populate inventory and refresh. Okay, we're going to copy all this here and paste it in. Now for the for each loop. That should, wait. Oh, I need that to be a single variable, not an array. So we're going, the item that we're passing in the check that we dropped is going to go into this little comparison operator here. Golly, that's still such a mess to look at. Alright, let's just try to clean this up a little bit. Alrighty, and Alright, this side looks somewhat manageable. Alright, so we're going to now delete all this. So after we drop the item, if I can click it. Alright, after we drop the item, we're going to call used or dropped item. I'm going to rename it. Capital O, so it looks right. There we go. The item is going to be, the item reference. Then we simply call our refresh inventory and null out our item reference. Alright, let's check it. Drop. It dropped. Something I'm curious about. Click it, close inventory, reopen, drop. Okay, so yeah, it gets recreated. So we can't drop it more than once, so that's all good. And it's a lot neater to look at. You can probably... no, because this is dedicated to just dropping. Alright, yeah, we're good to go. So now I'm going to go ahead and go through and reiterate. When our inventory is opened, this widget gets created. We will simply be getting our inventory components, getting our inventory items, which is a C++ function that simply returns an array of items. This. Then we're going to use our newly created C inventory items variable, well, array, and pretty much our inventory items array that's in C++ is going to be, so our C inventory items is going to be a copy of our current items array that is on our C++ class, except this is replicated from the server, whereas this variable is not. So while we update from the server with this here, as you saw, we had an issue before where there was a slight delay, and if there's any lag in the server, that could potentially cause issues later on. So then after we use it, and after we set it, we go ahead and call our remade populate inventory function, which just takes in an inventory array, or our array of items, and we simply loop through it. Then we go ahead and go through each and every one of the elements of the inventory array, and we check if it's valid. And if it's valid, we simply create a valid item slot. If it is not, then we create an empty slot. So let's rename this just a slot. And we don't pass in anything because it doesn't take in anything. All we're doing is just create an empty button, essentially. So then after we click drop on a button, this is where we pretty much do everything that we made a purpose for. I really feel like we can crunch this down and make it a lot smaller. Yeah, like in used or dropped item. Let's actually open this up real quick. Oh, I'm already calling refresh and set in it, so I don't need to do this twice. So let's delete refresh inventory and set the variable at the end. Compile and save. Triple check. Got it. And drop. And it's gone. There it is. Gone from inventory. Alright. So we, again, get our player inventory. Our inventory component, I mean, just so we can have access to our drop item function. And from there, we're going to call our used or dropped item function. And we pass in the item reference or the item that we, pretty much the button that we clicked on. This, whenever we click on a button in our inventory that has a valid item, this gets set. So in our used or dropped item function, we go through and loop through our client inventory array, and we go through and we check and see if the item reference here is in fact inside of this, our client inventory array of items. If that is the case, we remove it from our client array, and then on our, once that's done, well, that's going to be what breaks us out of the loop, so we don't need to run anymore. A little bit of performance. Then after that's done, we refresh our inventory and null out our item reference. Let's clean this up just a little more. There, I like that now. So that's all this is doing. And now that's why we no longer have that annoying little delay that could cause potential problems, as we are running this off of our client array. And no matter what, even if we try to cheat in items into our own client array variable, nothing's really going to happen because, well, let's say this water bottle was cheated in. It would simply disconnect us from the caller because that's not part of our own inventory. The only thing that adds or removes items from our actual inventory is the server, not our client. So, spam drop, nothing happens, good to go. And there's our items, our beans, our water, and our medkit, all drop down nicely. So, hopefully this was found quite useful. I'm going to go and drag this up a little bit. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.